Good morning. Today we'll discuss about the basic concepts of Java programming. The first question which comes into one's mind is why Java is so popular. Java is popular because of its key features. The first and most important feature of Java is that Java is platform independent. What does this mean? When you compile a program on one machine using Java as a source code, it can be executed on another machine irrespective of the platform it is being used. So let us see these features in details. The first is why you can write the Java code once and you can run it anywhere. That is, it is a platform independent and architecturally neutral. You need not to recompile it. This is due to the Java virtual machine. Bytecodes can be ported across the platforms with compatible versions of JVM. You can use Java. Second is its rich libraries. Java has very rich libraries which you can use to develop your own programs, or you can use these Java libraries for building graphical user interfaces, file input, output systems, networking, web applications, etc. The third feature of Java is it is internationalized. That is because it uses 16-bit Unicode characters, which enables it to be recognized as international language. The another feature of Java is it is distributed. That is, Java classes can be executed remotely. It has full support for serialization into bytecodes. It has networking capabilities, built-in tools for distributed message passing. The another feature of Java is that it is very much secure. Why it is very much secure? Java has customized security setting, that is, by using security managers you can restrict or you can determine which operations a particular program can execute on a host machine. For example, you can prevent applets from doing any local file input-output operations or killing other running processes. The another feature of Java is it is multi-threading. That is, let us see what is a process. A process is a program in execution, and a thread is a lightweight process. Multiple processes run through the same set of instruction in memory, as opposed to loading the application code into different memory locations. Java supports multi-threading, and because of this multi-threading, it can do various operations simultaneously. The other feature is the object-oriented. Java is fully object-oriented language. That is, everything written in this language has to be written in the classes, whether it is a method or it is attribute. You have to write everything in the class. So because of these restrictions, it is totally object oriented language. Everything has to reside in a class. It has support for inheritance, polymorphism, message passing, and because of this feature, it is object oriented language. Now let us see how a program executes, or let us see what comes under the Java environment. To run a program in Java, you have to write the instructions in Java code, and which has to be translated into an intermediate language called bytecode. Then the bytecode is interpreted into a particular machine language called object code. Now what are the things which you need to run a program on your host machine? The first thing is a compiler. A program that, what is a compiler then? A program that translates a program written in a high level language, for example Java, into the equivalent machine language. In this case of Java, this machine language is the bytecode. The second, the most important thing which has to be there on your system is Java Virtual Machine. What is Java Virtual Machine? It is a software which makes Java programs machine independent. So JVM is the most important feature that has to be there on the host machine, without which Java program cannot run. Now let us see what comes under Java Virtual Machine. First of all, Java program executes on Java Virtual Machine. Java Virtual Machine is nothing but it is a software which helps the programmer to get interpreted on a host machine, or you can say JVM is a virtual rather than a physical machine, which is typically implemented as a runtime interpreter. It translates bytecode instructions into object code instructions. Now let us see what are the processing, how the processing of a Java programs is does. The first thing is source program. You have to write a program in Java which is called a source program, which then uses a linker which combines bytecodes with other programs provided by the Sun development kit and creates executable codes. Then it uses loader to transfer it into the main memory to being executed. Then we use interpreter, which reads and translates each bytecode instructions into machine language and then execute it. So let us see it in the picture. Here you can see, here it is a source code written in Java which uses this compiler to convert it into the bytecode. Here the outcome of this compiler is a .class file, which is nothing but instructions of bytecode. Then this bytecode is transferred to the verifier, which checks the bytecode and pass it to the class loaders. It loads this class file into the main memory of the host machine, and with the help of interpreter it translates this byte code into the object code or the machine level language code. So here we get the object code from this source code. So this is the process. First it goes to the compiler where it generates byte code, then using this verifier it uses class loader which loads it into main memory, then with the help of interpreter it generates the object code. So this is the process of generating Java code. Now let us see Java runtime environment. What is Java runtime environment, or you can what is called JRE? The Java utility in SDK provides the JVM as a runtime interpreter. That is, JVM is supported by the Java itself. The JVM provides a runtime environment. So it is the JVM which provides the Java runtime environment, because this is a interpreter. So the work of an interpreter is to provide environment for the program to get executed. Next is it enables program to execute on the host program. By providing this Java runtime environment, it enables the programs to get execute on a host program. Next is Java program can work with security manager. Here comes the security thing. The security comes here. So with the help of security manager you can determine what are the operations that a program can perform on the host machine. So this is the security manager which determine which operations a program can perform on the host platform. Okay. Next, let us see what are the types of Java programs. There are 4 types of Java program. The first is the application, second is the applet, third is the servlet, and fourth is the Java Beans. Now let us see these types in detail. Java application. Java applications are the stand-alone program in the sense of requiring only the JVM to execute. It does not require any other host program for it being run on the host program. That is, it does not require a host program like browser which can help it to execute. That is, we need only the JVM, and JVM is the only thing which help it to execute. It has a main method which is used as its entry point. The second type of program is the Java applets. What is a Java applet? A Java typically it is a program typically downloaded from a server to a client machine. JVM is built into the web browser. A web browser acts as the host program for the applet. So it is web browser which initiates the applet to run, and an applet is typically launched through an HTML which is nothing but a hypertext language. They are embedded into, so the applets are embedded into HTML with the HTML tag. The applet typically operates under a strict security manager. which imposes sandbox security. So an applet cannot run outside this sandbox security manager, which enables the security mechanism on the host machine and can prevent an applet from performing potentially dangerous operations like reading from or writing to the local disk. The third type of Java program is the servlet. A servlet is a program that executes on a server machine, typically to process a request submitted from the client machine. A servlet's host program is typically a web server which provides a JVM. A servlet is like an applet and typically launched from a web browser, but unlike an applet, executes on the server side. So it is similar to the applet, but it runs on the server side, so implements more security. Now, a servlet commonly performs database operations and generate dynamic web content to be displayed on a client browser. The another type of Java program is a Java Bean. What are Java Beans? Java Beans are the predefined programs, or these are like Java objects which you can use in your program for doing or performing some particular operations. For example, you can do input-output operations, you can use serialization, etc., for, or you can call some database objects using these Java Beans. So let us see what are the Java Beans. What is the definition of Java Bean? A bean is a software component that is a pre-built software part that can be integrated with others to build an application. The Java Bean typically has a distinct spatial purpose. For example, a calendar bean, login bean, email bean, and so forth. So these Java Beans are designed for performing some particular kind of operations, and you can use these beans anywhere in your application. So these are the pre-built classes which you can use for developing your own applications. With the help of these beans, programming becomes very simple. Now let us start with our own Java program. So what has to be done before you start your programming? First of all, you have to create and run a Java program. How to create a Java program? For creating a Java program, you have to write a text file in Java source code, and you have to save it with .java extension at your host machine. For instance, source code for first program might reside in the file called hello.java. So here this hello is a text file with the extension .java, which contains Java programs. Then you have to compile the source code into binary code, and then you have to execute the binary code. Now before you execute a program, you have to compile that program. Using this compiler, you have to compile. But what are the instructions that you have to use for compiling? How you instruct a computer to that you want to get it compiled? You have to give a particular command for that. So here is this command. Javak is a command which suggests the computer that you want to compile your program. Suppose that Java source code resides in the plain text file called hello.java. Using the $sign as the system prompt, the source code is compiled with the command. Here we are showing you that this is the command for compiling the source code, that is $javak. Javak is a reserved word which is showing that we want to compile the source code, that is hello.java. So Javak is a utility, comes with the Java SDK itself. You need not to do anything for compiling or writing a compiler. It comes inbuilt with the SDK itself. So Javak is the command which you have to use for compiling. How you do it? That I have shown you just before. Just that you with the $sign as the we can assume that this $sign is a system prompt, and you have to write the Javak, and thereafter you have to give the full name of the program, that is hello.java, with the extension also, that hello.java. Now compiling a source code file such as hello.java generates one or more binary files with .class extension. For example, hello.java. So there can be number of possibilities that can happen. One is, after compilation you can get any of the following things. First is, if a fatal error occurs during compilation, the process ends with appropriate error message, that something has happened there, and for some error has happened. If non-fatal error occurs during compilation, the process continues with appropriate warning. So you can get the warning also, that if no fatal error is there, you will get the warning that something is wrong, but it is acceptable. Now for execution, what you need to do? Once the program has been compiled, it can execute with the Java utility. For instance, if the file hello.java contains a compiled standalone program, then you have to give the command called $java hello. Here this Java is a command which is showing that you want to execute this file called hello. So hello is the text file here, and you want to execute this hello, or it is not just a text file. Now as after it is being compiled, after compilation you get this hello.class. So this is hello.class. This is not hello.text or hello.java. It is hello.class, that which has to be executed. So this is Java hello, which executes the program. Now there is a difference. You have to keep it in mind that there is a difference between compilation and execution, and because these command for these two are similar, so you have to keep it in mind that which command should be used for which operation. For example, this Java is used for compiling a particular program, and with this Java you have to provide this hello.java. This extension has to be there, otherwise it won't compile. And another is Java hello. This command is for executing, not for compiling. So there is a difference. So we have to note that the Java extension is included in the compilation, but the .class extension is not included in the execution. So this has to be kept in mind. Now we will discuss some more basic features of Java. The first is the comments. How you can provide the comments in a Java program? There are two ways. The first is this sign. This is the way you can provide the one type of comment, but it has to be one line comment. So that is comment to the end of line. You cannot give the comment in 2-3 lines with this kind of sign. But if you want that the comment should be in multiple lines, then you have to provide this. You have to use this sign. So if you want to write a multiple line comment, then you have to start with this sign and you give the comments here and here or any number of lines, and in the end you have to provide this. That is, you have to close the comment. Okay. So, and one more thing that you have to remember is comments do not nest. You cannot nest 2-3 comments within a one comment. Okay. Now the another is keywords. Java has 48 keywords which you cannot use for defining your own variable names, classes, method, or etc. anything. So these are reserved. You cannot write. And beside these 48 keywords, there are another 3 keywords that are reserved for the literals, that are null. Null is a literal that which cannot be used or which may not be used for the defining your variables, method, or any identifier. And the other is false and true. These are the Boolean literals that which you cannot or you may not use for defining your identifiers. We will discuss these in detail later, but now let us come to the identifier. What is identifier? That I have used the word earlier in the last slide, that what is identifier. You cannot write, you cannot use this reserved word in the for defining your identifier. What is in the identifier then? This identifier is the name given to the things. For example, when you define a variable, or you define your own class, or you define your own method in the program, then these names are called the identifier, which are used to identify a particular thing, which is used for differentiating various things in a program. Okay. So, and there are some restrictions over it. You can identifier cannot be same as any keyword, that I have told you earlier also, that you cannot use keyword or reserved word for defining identifiers. For example, like you cannot write null, or you cannot use abstract, or you cannot use false as identifier, because these are literal. You cannot use them as identifier. And there are some other restrictions also, that they are case sensitive. If you write null in capital and you write null in smaller case, then these are different. You can use null in capital letters for identifier, but you cannot use null in lowercase for identifiers. So these two are different. So these in Java, the identifiers are case sensitive. There are some some more restrictions on the defining identifiers. The first thing is that it has to be letter. The first thing or the first word of the first letter of identifier has to be a letter, or it has to be underscore, or it has to be dollar sign. So these are the only things that you can use in your identifier as a first letter. For example, say this identifier is itself a identifier, okay, or you can say this name is a identifier, and so here this first letter can be either letter, or it can be underscore, or it can be a dollar sign, but you cannot use the digits here like 1, 2, 3, 4. You cannot use it here, but you can use here all them. Like you can write N1, you can write N1 for defining your identifier, but you cannot write 1N because the first character cannot be a digit. Okay, for example, name is identifier, address is identifier, underscore zip is identifier, and the dollar income is identifier, pay 1 is also identifier, etc. But you cannot write one name, one address, or like you cannot use the first letter, or you cannot use first character as a digit for defining your own identifiers. Now let us see what are the data types in Java. Now what is data type? It is a set of values together with the set of operation. For example, a data type can be integer. There are a number of data types which will be saying in the next slides. So there are two types of data types. One is primitive data type, and another is the user defined data type. And this primitive data type has its further extension as integrals, float points, or boolean. Now let us see these one by one in detail. Primitive data types are the data types which are predefined in Java. You need not to define these data types. And user defined data types are the data types that you have to define in your program. Java will not provide it by default. So in primitive data type, the first thing is float point data type. These float point data types have some precision, floating precision. For example, 6.2, 7.2, like that. So in floating point data types, there are two data types. One is float and second is double. And float has a precision equal to 6 or 7, and double has a precision equal to 15. The another data type is boolean. Boolean can have two values, either true or false. Now, what is integral data types? We have discussed float data type. In float we have seen there are two data types. One is float, then is double, then we have seen boolean. Now let us see what is integral data type. In integral data type we have a character, byte, short, int, and long. Let us see these in detail. Character, basically this character is used for storing some character value, and the storage capacity for this is 2 bytes. You cannot store character beyond 2 bytes. Another is the byte. byte is used for storing some value between these two, that is minus 128 to 127, and the storage capacity for it is 1 byte, or you can say 8 bits. Another integral data type is sort, that is a value from this to this you can use in this type of data type, and its storage capacity is up to 2 bytes, or you can say 16 bits. The another is int, that is integer. We store the values from this to this in this type of data type, that is integer data type, and the storage capacity for this is up to 4 kilobyte, that is 32 bits. The another data type is long. Long is basically used for storing larger integral values that comes from this to this value, and the storage value, the storage capacity is 8 bytes, that is 64 bits. Now let us see the literals. What are the literals? Literals are nothing but a value, a constant value which has its own meaning, and you cannot change the meaning of that particular literal. For example, null. Null is a literal and it has its own meaning, and you cannot change it because it is constant and you have to use it as it is. So null is one type of literal. Second is boolean. Boolean has two values, one is true, another is false. So it has its own, true has its own value, own meaning, false has its own meaning. You cannot change the meaning of these two literals. So true and false are two boolean literals that are predefined in the language. Next is integer. It is default for integral data types. If you will not mention any data type for say 100, that means by default it is an integer. So it is by default that it is int is a default literal in the Java. For example, 0374 is itself a literal of integer type, and you cannot change the meaning of this 0374 which is predefined in the language. Another is long. Long has its own meaning. Like I have told you that long, for storing larger integral values we use long. For long literals you have to specify L after the number. For example, here 0L, it is a small case L, and which follows 0. That means this is a long literal. Similarly, 05555L, it is showing that this is a literal which is long data type. Next is floating point literal types. Floating point. Float has, when you has to specify any literal of data type float, then you have to specify f following the number, that is like 1e1f. Here this is showing that this is a literal of type float. Similarly 2 point, this is a float literal. You cannot change the meaning of 2 point, isn't it? Similarly 0.3 f, this is showing that this is also a float literal. And 3.14 f, this is showing that this we can use capital cases also, upper cases also, to specify the float literals. Similarly, if you want to define some larger floating point literal, then you have to use double, and double is a default floating point integer, floating point data type. You need not to specify D. Like for example, we have used F for floating floats. We need not to write D, or this is this depends on you. If you want to specify D, it is acceptable. If you don't want, then by default it is assume that this is a double data type. So 1E1 is a double kind of literal. So you need to specify this, or it depends upon you. If you want, then you can specify D after that also. So we have discussed the literals. Now let us see the character literals. What are character literals? As we have seen, long data types, integral data types, literals, float data type literals. Let us see the character type of literals. It must be in a single quote. When you specify a literal in character of type character, then you have to specify it in the quotes. And next is escape character. You can use the escape character also. For example, escape T. If you write escape T in the quotes, it means that this is a tab, which we want to specify that we have to use tab. And we want, when we use escape with N, this shows that we have to go on the next line. That is, it is a new line character. Here we can see the examples. Quotes A, ampersand A. It has, these are the character literals. You cannot write more than one character in the quotes. Okay. So like for example, if you are writing X, Y, Z in quotes, then it will give the error. It will not consider it as a character literal. You can maximum you can specify one character in quotes. Now let us see the string literals. What are string literals? Anything comes in the double quote is considered as string literal. For example, if you write "this is my name" in double quotes, it will consider it as a string literal, and it has its own meaning. You cannot change the meaning of it, "this is my name." Okay. If you don't specify it in the double quotes, and you are just specifying it in the single quote, it will give the error, because single quotes are used for the characters only. They don't consider it as a string. When you want to specify it in the double quotes, only then it will be considered as string. Strings and the operations. Here, what are the operations that we can do with the string? The first thing is the plus operator. The plus operator can be used for concatenation of two strings. For example, we are storing the sum in str, and num1 with 12, num2 with 26, and we are using this plus operator for concatenating these two strings, and the result comes in the str as the sum is 1226. So we have seen these literals, characters, and the features of Java. In the next session, we will discuss some more features of Java, that is, some operators like arithmetic operators and their precisions, logical operators like Boolean operators, and or operators, short circuit evaluation, expressions, integral expressions, floating point expression, mixed expressions, So we will discuss is after a break.